This video is going to be a time lapse of the editing process I did for this composite. Now, first off, as part of your assignment, you have already made this sketch, and this is really just to help you figure out what the final composite is going to look like and help you figure out what kind of photos you need for the composite. The second step that we did already was source your images. So you were supposed to shoot some photos for this composite project, but you also had some freedom to find photos that were available for free online to create your composite. Okay, so after sourcing your images, this last step is what we're going to be concentrating on today in this video. It's going to be to merge and bring the images together in Photoshop using selections, layer masks, light and color, and different elements as needed to pull all these photos together. So one of the first steps that I recommend doing is doing your global edits in Lightroom or Camera Raw if you prefer. Try to at least match up exposure, white balance, as well as turning on any lens corrections that may be necessary. So now that you've done that, open all of your images in one file in Photoshop and rename your layers. So there are multiple ways to do this. How I did it in this video was to go to Lightroom, select all of the photos I'm going to be using, and then go right click on one of the photos and go to edit in, and then choose as layers in Photoshop, and it will open up all of your photos into one file. So next we're going to move and transform the layers to where they will be in your composite. So you're going to make them smaller or larger, and then kind of give them, figure out kind of where they're going to go. Once you're done with this step, it's really the longest step, which is creating the different layer masks on each of your layers in order to cut them out, cut your subjects and your objects out from the backgrounds so that you can paste them into your composite. And this part can take quite a while sometimes. We have some really great tools in Photoshop and they're only getting better, but sometimes you do have to do a little bit of work to get it just right. Working on this background, I did need to separate the buildings from the sky, and that ended up being a little bit more difficult than I anticipated because of the fine areas on the buildings. So this part did take quite a bit longer than I thought it would. But it's totally going to be worth it. Now remember that you also need to be doing any retouching if necessary. This is really going to depend on your personal project and what needs to be retouched for your project. Another really important tip is to make sure that you're renaming your layers as you create them. Especially like when you get into your editing layers and such. If you need to, let's say, change the white balance for one image or something, you might want to rename that white balance, planet, or white balance stuffed animal, or white balance skyline, or whatever, so that if you do need to go back and change it up a little bit, it's a little bit easier to tell when you're looking through your layers. Okay, so here I'm kind of just playing around with some of the different star images and just trying to figure out exactly how I want to get the sky working. I got the main elements pretty much there, but I'm just playing with this stuff and trying to figure out how I want to make it work. I've decided I want to add this nebula that my stuffed animal is actually staring at instead, kind of like entranced by this nebula that's floating in the sky. So I started playing with that and adding that in. And that's the great thing with Photoshop. It lets you be completely creative and non-destructive. So I came in with a plan, but with this plan, some things changed and I started adding other things, and that's completely fine. Okay, so now I'm working on adding light and shadows. So I'm working on these planets, trying to figure out, okay, how to make them look a little bit more realistic. How dark would they actually be in the sky? How bright they might be, adding a little bit of shadows on the back edges. And then I think I'm going to end up adding some shadows between the planets as well, playing with the colors to try to make the sky line look more like it's nighttime instead of the middle of the day. Playing with the different clouds. I ended up doubling the sky layer and putting one layer on top of the planet so that I could play with the opacity of the clouds and which clouds I want to look like are running in front of there. Okay, so now I'm trying to add more light You know, I did make my figure darker at one point to try to make it look like he was in the night sky, but now I want to make it look like the nebula is shining this crazy light on to my stuffed animal. So there I have that there. And now to really sell the effect, I want to add the reflection of the nebula into my stuffed animal's eyes, so that's what I'm working on here. And there we have it.